housekeeping details that we need to go through. And speaking right now is Doug Fuller. Number one, if you would like to make a public comment during this meeting, just a moment. If you would like to make a public comment during this meeting, we will prompt you at the appropriate time in the agenda to virtually raise your hand. If you are viewing the meeting on your computer, first make sure to click Join Audio. You can then raise your hand virtually by clicking the Participants button at the bottom of your screen and then the Raise Hand button at the bottom right of your screen. If you dialed into the meeting from your touch-tone phone, you can raise your hand virtually by dialing *9. Once we get to the public comment section on the agenda, we will unmute participants with raised hands one at a time. The chat feature on this Zoom meeting is available only as technical support for users on their computers or smartphone. If you are experiencing technical issues with audio or video during the meeting, submit a comment in the chat feature and our IT manager will help you troubleshoot. The audio and video of this meeting is being recorded. A link to the video will be posted to WC Roads in the coming days. Today's meeting agenda is posted on wcroads.org, and there is a link available in the chat if you are joining us from your computer. At this point, I'm going to call the meeting to order, and we'll have a roll call for attendance. Currently speaking remotely from Scioto Township is the chair, Doug Fuller. Vice Chair Barb Fuller, are you there?
Yes, Barb Fuller participating remotely from Sharon Township, Washtenaw County, Michigan.
Commissioner Rod Green.
Good afternoon. I'm Roderick Green. I am participating remotely from Superior Township.
Thank you. Commissioner Gloria Yamas.
Good afternoon. Gloria Yamas participating virtually from Pittsville Township.
And Commissioner Joanne McCullum.
Present. I am participating remotely from Ypsilanti Township, Washtenaw County.
Managing Director Cheryl Siddell.
Here.
County Highway Engineer Matt McDonnell.
Present.
Director of Operations Jim Harmon.
Present, Mr. Chair.
Director of Finance and IT Dan Ackerman. It is our standard practice to begin our board meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance. Since we are hosting this meeting virtually today, instead we will start this meeting with a moment of silence. Today's moment of silence is to honor everyone impacted by the coronavirus pandemic, including the nurses, doctors, other medical professionals, and the emergency responders who are working tireless to care for us under extremely difficult circumstances. And as always, a moment for all those road workers that are out there taking care of the motoring public. Thank you. At this point, I'd like to have a motion on the agenda.
I motion that we approve the November 17th agenda.
I support.
The agenda as presented has been moved and supported. All votes during these remotely managed meetings require a roll call vote. So I'll start with myself and I vote yes. Commissioner Fuller,
Yes.
Commissioner Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Yamas,
Yes.
and Commissioner McCollum.
Yes.
Thank you. We have an agenda. On page 3 of your board packets are the minutes of the meeting of November the 3rd. I'd like to have a motion to approve those minutes as presented, or with corrections if we find it necessary. Could I have a motion, please?
I move acceptance of the meeting minutes from November 3rd, 2020 as presented.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Did anyone find any things that needed to be corrected or discussed before we accept these minutes?
Yes, Commissioner, it shows me absent for this meeting and I was not absent in the meeting minutes. Says
Thank you.
Gloria.
Duly noted, and I noted the same thing. In fact, I have an asterisk on there, and I was going to suggest that. I know you were having technical difficulties with your computer that afternoon, so we'll make that correction, please. Anything else, commissioners?
No.
With that, again, a roll call vote is required. I will vote yes to accept the minutes. Barb,
Yes.
Rod,
Yes.
Gloria,
Yes, that's corrected.
as corrected, and Joanne.
Yes.
Thank you. At that point, I think we're ready to move to public comment. Am I missing anything? Emily, do we have people that would like that have their hands raised that would like to comment?
I'm going to do the instructions one more time, and then it looks like we do have
Please.
some. But if you're viewing the meeting on your computer, please make sure to first click Join Audio, and then you can raise your hand by clicking the Participants button at the bottom of your screen, and then the Raise Hands button at the bottom right of your screen. If you dial into the meeting from your touch-tone phone, you can raise your hand by dialing *9. I will unmute you participants with a raised hand one at a time, and I'll announce your username or the last 4 digits of your phone number when it's your turn to speak. As with all meetings, this is a time to receive comments from the public. It is not intended to be a period of dialogue. Each person will be allotted 3 minutes to address the board. So if you'd like to make comment, please raise your hand now. Commissioners, we do have one person with a raised hand. I'm gonna unmute. Go ahead, user with the last name of Brown.
Good afternoon, it's Petula Brown. Can you hear me okay?
We can, yep, go ahead.
Thank you. Well, I was advised to come to this meeting by my supervisor, Brenda Stumo, in Ypsilanti Township. And I believe Commissioner McCollum, I did send an email before this meeting. I'm not sure if you received it. So I'm not sure if for the limit of time we had, if you did get it, if you could respond to that and, maybe give your colleagues sort of a summary, since Supervisor Stumo was the person who introduced us. Did you get that email?
Yes, I did. And I did send it around to the other commissioners. Thank you, Ms. Brown.
So, so I guess the question is to the committee, because I did put an action item there, and I'm not sure if now is the time to get an answer to that, or Commissioner McCollum, you're going to follow up with me to kind of determine the next steps.
Well, Ms. Brown, if you want to sort of give a summary to the panel here, and then we could probably afterwards follow up with you with an email. Is that okay?
Okay. So assuming you said you had sent it out, so I won't read the whole thing, but the bottom line is, my name is Petula Brown. I'm the president of the Fort Lake Village Property Homeowners Association in Ypsilanti Township. And we have found that the summary is we have road needs. that we feel need to be addressed. We have noticed in your 2019 and 2020 township books, you've listed several roads in Fort Lake Village for consideration, particularly High Ridge, because it happens to be the oldest road in the subdivision. For various reasons has not been worked on. I went to the Ypsilanti Township Board meeting and asked the question, why not, and how to get it on the list so it is worked on next year, because it seemed like your materials implied that that decision rests with the township leadership. When I went to the meeting and inquired, they suggested I come to this group and express my interest. So I went to Supervisor Stumo and put that forward. Stan Eldridge, who's also a member of the township board, came to one of our Fort Lake Village membership meetings and was very helpful. He agreed to attend this meeting. I'm not sure if he's here. So the bottom line is everything pointed to come to this meeting to say our interest in getting our subdivision on whatever report list, whatever it needs to happen, and decide work done on those roads. So that's my ask. And so that was essentially what I put in the email. And I'm thinking we just need a meeting between the leadership, between the Fort Lake Village Board, your board, and the Ypsilanti Township Board. But if you want to propose another way to move forward, we're open to that. Is that a fair summary, Commissioner McCullough?
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Yes, that was very good. And I'm going to turn it over to Chair Fuller to see what we're to do next here. Thank you so much, Ms. Brown.
Ms.
Okay.
Brown, I don't have a formal response since this meeting is set up in a way that precludes my doing that. However, that having been said, what we can certainly do is ensure that a member of our staff gets in touch with you directly in the next, certainly in the remaining part of this week, possibly even today, and discuss with you what the actual next steps look like. Do we have your contact information? Well, of course we do, because you.
Well, I know Commissioner McCollum has it. I know she has it. So
Of course we have it. So with that, I will simply say you will be contacted personally with some additional information. And I do have a question. Could you give me the name of, say, 2 or 3 streets that you're particularly interested in within your subdivision?
well, I know High Ridge was one,
Okay.
and I think Cary was another, but it's in your report. So I mean,
All right.
I don't remember it, but it was in the report your organization put together. So
Oh,
I'd go
okay.
with any
All
of the
right.
roads in there. We'll take it.
Okay. All right. Very good. I thank
But-
you.
Right,
go
but
ahead.
if I might, I'd just like to reiterate that also in the email I sent, our next Fort Lake Village Board meeting is on January 13th. They're always on the second Tuesday. The second Wednesday. They're at 7 p.m. And just like the Ypsilanti Township Board member Stan Eldridge attended this month in November, I'm welcoming and inviting anyone on this call representing the Washtenaw County Road Commission to attend. It is in the evening because most of us have jobs, and so it's a volunteer position. So if any one of you are interested in attending, that is January 13th. That's a Wednesday. It's 7 p.m. We use Google Meet, and just let me know whom to invite. And again, Commissioner McCollum, you have my contact information if they want to get in touch with me. Any other questions for me?
I don't think so. And I appreciate your taking time out of your schedule to give us a call today. So we'll move
Thank you.
forward from there.
Thank you.
Emily, do we have anyone else?
We do. We have another person. Let's see. Rob Wilson, you want to go ahead? Unmute
Please.
Yep, you should be able to go ahead.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me okay?
We
Yes,
can.
sir. See you as well.
My name is Rob Wilson. I'm with Mid-Michigan Materials. We're new to Washtenaw County and to Ann Arbor Township. We just purchased Washtenaw Sand and Gravel in the end of the month of July. It was a rather lengthy process to obtain a conditional use permit, and I had several conversations with Matt McDonough and Mark McCullough with your organization, and have a pretty good understanding of the expectations of us on the road, with it being a Class B road. After obtaining the conditional use permit and agreeing to, if we ever were to seek anything further than what is currently in place, we would work with the township and give them some say and protection, I guess. This came up about Earhart Road being identified as a natural beauty road, and personally, it feels like the timing of such is just an attack and a further layer of an attempt to tie our hands when we've already agreed to several conditions that give the community protection. And as I say, we're new to the neighborhood. I believe that not only our process and our track record and our conversations and our upfront approach with the road commission and ultimately Ann Arbor Township was above board, and I guess I'm very concerned, and I view this as an attack on our business, and I don't think we've done anything but what's been asked of us. So we definitely don't support that, and we look forward to meeting and being a good partner with the road commission and the township, and doing our part to be a good neighbor and play by the rules. But this just feels like an additional string trying to be tied around us. And I guess I also think the facts speak for itself. A traffic study during COVID concerns me, but with Domino's Farms, the biggest business on the road, running at 30% capacity. Having said that, though, the numbers were already, if I understand it correctly, and the requirements were well above what would usually be considered for such a designation. So I guess I just appreciate the opportunity to take a moment of your time and just share our concerns for that designation. But it comes with the caveat that we have nothing but intentions to be a good neighbor to the citizens and work with the road commission, just as the Vela family who operated Washtenaw Sand and Gravel did before us. So thank you for your time. If you have any questions on my comments, I'm happy to answer it. Otherwise, I'll let you get on with your meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Commissioners, does anyone have a question for Mr. Wilson? Hearing none, I will again thank you for your time. And you're certainly welcome to stay on the call and see what we do with it when we get to that point in the agenda. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Emily, do we have anyone else?
At this time, Commissioner, there is no one else with a raised hand.
Okay, thank you. Moving on from public comment to written communications, which in my packet starts on page 12. Do my fellow commissioners have comments or thoughts about the written communications that were included?
Do not.
I don't hear any.
I don't have any.
Okay. We'll take the written communications as written. And now I'd like to have a motion on the consent agenda, please.
I move approval of the consent agenda as presented, items 1 through 6.
Support.
Thank you. The consent agenda has been moved and seconded. We'll start with my vote, just because that's what it says in front of me. I vote yes. Commissioner Barb Fuller,
Yes.
Commissioner Rod Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Gloria Yamas,
Yes.
and Commissioner McCollum.
Yes.
Thank you. We have a consent agenda, and I don't know why I've even got it highlighted on my agenda. I skipped over the commissioner and staff follow-up to public comment. Do my fellow commissioners have any comments about the two people that addressed us that you'd like to share at this point? And with my apologies for skipping over it.
I just have to say that I think that the public that spoke and the response went well. I believe the first person who spoke, letting that person know there will be follow-up. That was good. And the second person who spoke about the Earhart Road, I appreciate what he had to say and his opinion about it.
So this is Gloria Yamas. I wanted to speak to Rob Wilson's comments on the beautification that we voted to put in place. I believe a follow-up to him would be in order. I believe that so that he knows the process. Beautifications can be overturned depending on traffic increases, if I remember correctly, but I don't want to quote that.
Well, we haven't approved anything about that. There is a separate agenda item which will be next.
Okay.
So we can discuss that at some length.
All right.
But I'm absolutely certain that he'll be contacted about the results one way or the other. So, Commissioner Green, anything you'd like to add?
Just that I took note of Mr. Wilson's comments regarding the beautification of Earhart Road. Certainly something to think about. We'll give it further consideration as we go on. I'm thanking for his comments.
Exactly. Barb, anything you'd like to add at this point?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you. Now we have some an action item.
Mr.
Four.
Chair,
Please,
Mr. Chair,
please.
as Director of Operations, I would like to respond to Ms. Brown's comments regarding Ford Lake Village.
Oh,
I want to remind the board that staff did propose substantive improvements to 4 road segments in Ford Lake Village, most recently this spring to Ypsilanti Township. I'd also remind the board that the commission has certainly been committed to local road improvement within that community, particularly those 4 road segments, and subject to a financial partnership with the community. The board is certainly aware of our statutory limitations in investments in local road improvements. We're limited to no more than half the cost. We don't have half the cost. Instead, the board takes money from its primary road fund in order to create our local matching program, which we avail to each of the 20 townships for a variety of local road improvements. It would certainly be my intention to again propose improvements for roads in that community. I believe it's justified, and if the township is committed to that end, I would look forward to bringing agreement to you for 2021 for improvements in that subdivision. But this is not foreign to us. We're well aware of the conditions, and we have made some progress within the community over the last few years, partnering with the township and improving some of the roads. Thank you, sir.
thank you, Jim. I've got a question for you. I'm familiar basically with that subdivision that High Ridge is part of, which is just east of that big park down there, that big township park. Do you happen to recall when those were originally paved?
I do not.
Okay. I know it was some time ago. I do know that. So, Okay,
Mr. Chair, if I may follow up on Jim's comments as well.
please.
I just want to assure you that we will continue to work with Ypsilanti Township. I have spoken with Brenda Stumbo about this specific project as well as the matching program for the coming year. They do intend to participate. They historically have in the past. They also have a tremendous amount of need in a limited budget like most of us. So they are having to pick and choose amongst the projects that they select. So while these very well may be good candidates, I would like to at least acknowledge the fact that the township is doing the best that they can. They do also fund a little differently than some of our other township partners. They typically will bond every 10 years. So they do have substantive bond payments that they are paying each year in addition to matching the local funds that we make available, or the funds that we make available to them through the local matching program as well. So certainly we will continue to work with them. We are not denying the fact that there are very well needs within the Ford Lake Village subdivision, as well as other locations within Ypsilanti Township.
Many other locations within all of our townships for that matter.
Correct.
And point made, off the top of your head, Cheryl, do you happen to remember where they are in their bonding cycle at this point in time? I think
believe
maybe
they have
year 5.
one more year of payment. They will make payment in 2021, and then it'll be up to them whether they want to bond again in 2022.
Okay, thank you. So we're further into it than because I remember vividly when they bonded the last time, but not vividly enough to remember the date. So thank you.
Cheryl, I have a question through the chair, Doug.
Please go ahead.
I know that it is beyond our purview probably and our responsibility, but I wondered, have they asked for, or we've given them recommendations on how they might find funding for what they're trying to do other than bonding? Because I know that that continues to be a contentious thing for that community because they feel taxed and overtaxed. That is not our business, but I wonder, our staff has done such an awesome job in finding funds for the roads. I didn't know if that was ever offered or if it's even possible, but often wisdom can be shared.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We actually, as part of our outreach with both new elected officials and incumbent elected officials, we will be hosting in January a Roads Funding 101 to try to explain transportation funding. And obviously it's complicated first and foremost. In addition, there's different pots that are available. Frankly, these are local roads, which is the most challenging pot to fund. Both with respect to us, as Jim indicated, we have limitations on the percentage of funding that we can put, as well as dollar amounts ourselves into these very roads. So we look to partners, which most frequently are the townships. We will certainly help them with the funding, different funding mechanisms that we are aware of as well. And sometimes in each community is a little bit different. Some elect to bond. That has been historically how they choose to fund road improvements. Others do special assessment districts. Some have millages. So we certainly will talk about different tools that may be available. We will also be talking about asset management, how to best manage the assets that they have and to keep the good and fair roads in good and fair shape. And certainly the very expensive, poor roads are a challenge to fund across the board. So, but we will have all of those discussions in January, or at least the beginning of those discussions in January. And we are always available to assist them with those types of discussions. And I believe we have a very good relationship with Ypsilanti Township. At the end of the day, it really comes down to the fact that it comes down to money, and no one has the funding available to do the level of improvement that really is necessary throughout the county.
Thank you.
I'm going to put in one thing there. I would add that given the levels of services required in Ypsilanti Township because of the number of miles of roads, and the resources available to the township government, I have to say that the administration that Supervisor Stumbo heads has done a remarkable job over the last 20 years of improving the roads in that particular township. So anyway, certainly a world of needs there and in every other single township in our county. And I'm sure that's true across the state. Are we ready to move on to conversation about Earhart Road? I'll, at this, just because of the way it's presented in our booklet and the fact that it has many moving parts, I think I'd simply like to open a conversation among the supervisors about their reactions to the very clear guidelines that we have concerning natural beauty roads. And the fact that as it presently is configured, Earhart Road doesn't exactly meet all of those. To start that conversation, what I'd really like to do is invite Cheryl to invite staff that has been involved in that request to open the conversation. Cheryl?
I can certainly do that. Did you want to handle the consent agenda first, or did you want to move right on to Earhart Road?
I thought we handled the consent agenda.
There was a motion to pass the consent agendas.
Okay.
Did we not vote on it? I thought we did.
All right.
Carrie would probably know, right? Since she's keeping the notes. I thought we did too.
You guys did vote on it.
Okay,
Yep.
I apologize. I missed that then.
Yeah, that's fine.
All
I
right.
was gonna say, I know I voted yes, so, okay,
When we went into the response to the public comment, I guess that's what.
right, exactly.
So
Well, that's-
I apologize.
I'll
for
take the
that.
credit for that, reversing the order of that.
Yeah,
But anyway,
no.
so
Okay.
go to
all right.
Earhart Road.
So with that, I am more than happy to hand it over to Brent at this point to talk about the Natural Beauty Road. He can certainly bring us up to speed on Earhart and everything that we have done to date, including we've had the public hearing, and then we've also had collected the information with respect to the criteria under the act. So with that, I'd be more than happy to turn that over to Brent.
Thanks, Cheryl. Yeah, the Washtenaw County Road Commission, we follow the Natural Beauty Act 451 of 1994. So basically this act sets up the ability for petitioners to petition for the designation of a natural beauty road. The Road Commission is then tasked with setting guidelines and a policy to manage the requests. So our goal of the Natural Beauty Road program is to acknowledge the natural character of certain county roads that have unusual and outstanding natural beauty features along the roadway. Again, we follow Act 451. In this, it sets forth procedures whereby freeholders of townships can petition the Washtenaw County Road Commission to designate certain local roads as natural beauty roads. So within our guidelines, and I stated that within my summary, we have 7 guidelines that we follow, which are the character of the road, the length of the road, whether or not roadside development is along the road or within the segment being requested, the function of the road, the current condition of the road, the traffic volume, and the percentage of vegetation. So we received the petition in July. We went through a process with the township to verify that petition, and then that went to our board in September 1st. Based on the act, we have to hold a public hearing within 6 months of the acceptance of the petition. So we've done that where we held the public hearing on October 27th. Prior to that, the act also indicates that we have to advertise and acknowledge the public hearing. And we did that through actual news articles and posting our message boards along the roadway to inform the public of the public hearing. So with that, we then went through the public hearing and described our evaluation of the guidelines which have been approved by our board. And then now we're here today because 30 days after the public hearing, the Road Commission Board has to act on an approval or denial of the natural beauty designation. So that's pretty much a summary. We have within the board packet includes comments that were received, and also the public hearing was recorded, and that's located within our website.
So as is typical, staff does provide both a resolution in support and a resolution of denial. And so we typically will open it up to the commissioners to discussion and then to select which resolution they will pass.
Cheryl, if I may, I've got a couple of questions for Brent before we move on to conversation with commissioners. My reading of the report that Brent included or was included in our board packet, whoever prepared it, the current average daily traffic on an unpaved roadway should not exceed 500 vehicles per day for consideration as a natural beauty road. And the ADT, whatever day we happen to count, in this calendar year, it says here, was 762 vehicles, north of Warren Road, was 762 vehicles per day. And I'm not, the way this reads, the ADT on Earhart Road collected in 2020 north of Warren Road was 762 vehicles per day, and south of Joy was 553 vehicles per day. That would be the same stretch of road, would it not?
Correct. We collected the data in two different locations to get the full segment. The segment that was requested was just under 1.5 miles. And so we wanted to capture both ends of the segment.
Okay. So the extremely short story is we are already above the volumes that the qualifying act requires. Is that not correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Yeah. It meets the other criteria for the road, as far as I can read. Would that also be correct, Brent?
It meets the vegetation requirement. It meets the length of road requirement, but it does not meet the volume of road, the function of the road. It's classified as a major collector road, and our guidelines, and based on the act, it should be a local road just serving residential houses. It also can be questioned on the function or the development because there is a development on the north side or on the northern end of the segment of Washtenaw Sand and Gravel. And so that does exist along this segment.
And has, going back, I would have thought something in the order of 50 years or more that Washtenaw Sand and Gravel has been there. though it has new owners now. And from what I'm given to understand, they expect to expand that operation. So it meets the criteria with the exception of the function of the road and the traffic volume. Would that be a fair statement?
Yeah, I would also add those two are clear that it does not meet the criteria that we've set out, yes.
Okay. With that, I think I'd like to open it for commissioners to make observations or ask questions of staff, and see where we want to wind up with this. We'll start with Barb Fuller. Barb, do you have any comments?
While I appreciate the conditions that the residents along that segment of Earhart Road are very fond of, reading the report and the criteria that we are given to evaluate requests for these designations, I concur that there are 3 of the conditions that it does not meet. I am concerned that citizens have very few tools for control of local roads that they wish to have some say over. It became clear to me through this process, once again, that the Natural Beauty Road designation, correct me if I'm wrong, does nothing more than provide a sign to say this is a beautiful road. It doesn't impact speed limit. It doesn't impact maintenance of the road. It does not impact vegetation control measures or ditching, draining, any of that. It is strictly an acknowledgement that it's a beautiful road, and we provide probably 2 signs, I would guess, at least 2 signs, one coming, one going. So while I agree it's a beautiful road, I drove it, it was lovely. In my opinion, it doesn't meet the criteria. And in fact, the one resident that I recall testifying remarked that the only reason she felt there was application was just an acknowledgement that it was a beautiful road, to affirm their affection for that segment of road. So at this point, I am inclined to deny the request.
Thank you. Commissioner Green, comments you'd like to make? And you don't have to, I just asked the question.
Sure. Well, I had an opportunity to drive the area about a week or so ago, and I was impressed with it. As far as the volume of traffic, however, I think that the current volume of traffic, and certainly when we get back to post-COVID conditions, it will probably exceed the amount that will allow us to designate this road as a historic, beautiful road. So for that reason, I don't think it meets the criteria. And I've also looked as well as the comments of interested persons who will be affected by that. I think they have valid comments.
When I read all the comments that were gathered, I concur with all of the comments on both sides of it. So thank you, Rod. Gloria, observations you'd like to make?
Well, while I think this is reading all the comments, and I drive that road, have driven that road often because it is a beautiful road, and it still does not meet the criteria. I'm often looking for out of the box ideas to try and satisfy both the citizens and the needs that we have to adhere to by law. And short of them shortening the distance that they might want to consider, I feel bad for the citizenry that want to continue it, but if they were looking for a way to try and block something from happening, like Barb said, it is really only to state it's a beautiful road. I mean, nothing can be taken from that. I don't know that the designation is going to make that any different. It's not. It's going to remain a beautiful road. I think that if they oppose to what they feel like might be development that's going to happen, that's going to deteriorate that road, those can be addressed, I think, some other time. I just, it's a tough situation, but as I was marking down how many criteria was met, I think I did 4, which was the length of the roadbed, the vegetation, and the condition. But the others did not meet it. The roadside development, the function, and volume, most importantly, volume. And I think even that volume is understated given the COVID situation. And I'm sure that there will be citizens not happy with that decision, but I can't. It's a difficult one, but I don't agree that we could legally designate it a beautiful road for those reasons. Thank you.
Thank
That's all I
you.
have.
Thank you. Joanne?
Yeah, I went back and forth with this because I appreciate the residents wanting to just label the road beautiful. I think in this day and age, all what's going on, you know, that's a nice thing to do. However, with the criteria, it's there for a reason. And I think even if one isn't met, it shouldn't be applied to this road. I know it's just signs that are going to be put there. It's not going to hinder anything, traffic or development or anything, but at the same time, we do have certain criteria that is written up specifically for natural beauty road, and it doesn't fit it. So I would incline to not agree with the request.
Through the chair, I have one more question for staff. If
Go
the
ahead.
length that they requested was shortened, would it meet that? And I don't know that the residents would want to do that anyway, but it was just a question. Like I said, I'm always looking for a compromise or outside the box. It's not something that I know that we could do through this. But as an answer to the citizens who've requested, if there was some other avenues that they might consider. And I don't know the answer to that myself. So a question to the staff indeed, if it was shortened, would it, you know, we can't do the 0.32 or almost 1.5 miles. Could we do a half a mile of it or a mile of it? I don't know.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Please.
In this particular case, the law is actually set up to, you have to have a minimum length of roadway. It does, which is a half mile. So certainly there's room for shortening in this particular case. But it is set up specifically to avoid just tiny little segments that might meet, and then, you know, the others that would exclude it. In this particular case, the traffic volumes appear to exceed all parts of this roadway. So I think that you'll be in excess on volume regardless of whether or not they shorten it. In addition, the function of the road per the National Functional Classification is consistent throughout the length of the road as well. And that too does not meet the definition of a local access road. So those two criteria are going to be remain the same regardless of whether it's dropped to a half mile in length or anything in between that and what the segment that was requested.
Thank you, Cheryl.
I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Please, go ahead, Barb.
Is it within the authority of a township to declare a road beautiful? Could they create their own process for such things? I see signs that, you know, this land preserved compliments of Scioto Township's Land Preservation Committee. So because we're constrained legally on the designations that we can bestow for this designation, is there the potential at the township level for that unit of government to create a program to acknowledge such characteristics of its township?
Reasonable question.
I don't know
And-
the answer.
Yeah, nor do I. No one has ever asked it in my hearing previously. I'd make two comments. One is we could certainly ask our own council. We could also ask, in particular case of this one, Ann Arbor Township, to ask their legal counsel, whoever that may be, to explore that option. I would also say, and I'll yield to, or I'll ask Cheryl for her opinion in just a moment. What's before us today is before us today, and we're going to have to act on that because of the time constraints involved. But anyway, Cheryl, have you ever heard of such a thing? Doesn't sound like something that I would be wildly enthusiastic about, but what do you think?
I have seen reference to townships calling things scenic roads. I have no idea what that truly means or if that carries any weight. I think we would need to be careful. I think that we work very closely with our township partners, but we also make it very clear that at the end of the day, we have jurisdiction over roads. And so if somehow a designation by a township would interfere or conflict with our designations, I think that potentially now we're in conflict with each other as opposed to working in partnership, which we've worked very hard to do.
Right.
But I guess I do not firmly know the answer to that question.
Okay.
I'm not trying to make trouble. I'm just trying to acknowledge and respect the sentiment of the people who live on that segment and others in
And
that
others.
general area, to
Right.
provide them with some hope of an alternative to what I will not be voting in support of.
Right.
And further, I would encourage Mr. Wilson and Mid-Michigan Materials to take on a posture of wanting to be good neighbors. Mr. Wilson used the word attack repeatedly in his
did.
remarks, which I don't find helpful. And I would encourage him and his company that he represents, maybe he's the owner, I don't know, to work cooperatively and sensitively with people in that area.
I noticed the same phraseology. He also commented more than once in his that he expected to behave as a good neighbor. So take him at his word for that. But yes, I was not personally fond of the way he was characterizing the efforts of his neighbors to continue living in a nice green space while he's mining gravel. So anyway,
Mr.
Mr. Chair,
Yep, I believe Matt had a question as well.
please.
more an observation to Barb's question regarding the township's authority. Certainly, I have seen references to what Cheryl said, a scenic route or their description of in a land use master plan. Certainly, a land use master plan is a document that is very much a township under their authority. They make all the land use decisions, and that land use master plan would be a great spot to potentially acknowledge Earhart Road from their perspective. Obviously, in the board packet is a resolution of support for this petition from Ann Arbor Township. So certainly, in whatever decision this board makes, as we acknowledge that to the township, that could be something that we make a recommendation on.
Good. Thank you, Matt. Someone else wanted to get in there.
I believe
Okay.
that was Cheryl just introducing Matt.
Oh, okay. All right. That could be. So with all of that, I think I'm ready to ask someone to make a motion. And from the comments that I've heard, the resolution on page 59, which is a denial of the designation of Earhart Road as a natural beauty road, would probably be the motion that would gain the most support. Would someone care to make that motion besides me?
Point of clarification,
Yes, sir.
does the entire
excuse me.
resolution need to be read aloud?
That's the way I would normally do it.
Okay, therefore, I move, whereas this board has received a petition from 25 or more property owners of the Township of Ann Arbor, Washtenaw County, Michigan, praying for the natural beauty road designation of Earhart Road between Warren Road and Joy Road, a distance of approximately 1.32 miles in sections 1 and 2 of Ann Arbor Township. Whereas a public hearing was held virtually on the 27th day of October 2020 to determine the advisability of designating the above described local road as a natural beauty road pursuant to Act 451 of the Public Acts of 1994, and whereas although Earhart Road meets some of the criteria defining a natural beauty road, the character of the natural vegetation and features within and associated with the road right-of-way is typical of many similar roads in this portion of Washtenaw County. And whereas the Washtenaw County Road Commission does not anticipate any changes in its current maintenance practices that would adversely impact the natural character of Earhart Road, regardless of whether the road was designated as a natural beauty road. And whereas Earhart Road, as above described, is under the jurisdiction of the Washtenaw County Road Commission as recorded in Washtenaw County records, now therefore be it resolved by the Board of County Road Commissioners of the County of Washtenaw that the petition requesting natural beauty road designation of Earhart Road as above described is hereby denied in accordance with the provisions, rules, and regulations enacted by Act 451 of the Public Acts of 1994.
Support.
Or
It has been moved and supported. Any further conversation among the commissioners?
I have a question
Please.
through the chair.
Please.
And how will the petitioners be notified of the process and the decision?
Cheryl?
Staff will contact the petitioner and notify them of the results, the resolution that was passed by this board.
Thank you.
I have a question. Will the explanation as to why it was denied also be in that response? I don't
Again,
know who can
Cheryl?
answer that.
Well, some of it is within the resolution itself. Certainly with respect to the explanation, I guess staff can attempt to do that, and we can certainly share with them the fact that this meeting is a public meeting and there is a recording of this meeting as well. So we can attempt to summarize and certainly point them to this discussion should they elect to see the actual deliberation that took place as part of this decision.
Okay, thank you.
I guess through the chair, Cheryl, in reading the resolution, some of the two most important reasons were not in here to my mind, and that was volume. I guess there was some confusion. I thought vegetation did meet it when we were having the discussions prior, and in the resolution it says vegetation does not meet it. So maybe that's my confusion. But the function and the volume certainly did not meet it. And the roadside development. So those three things were the things. Am I incorrect in stating that? Roadside development, function, volume were three of the biggest things that did not meet that criteria.
Correct.
And I don't see that in this resolution.
They are not specifically called out in the resolution as proposed.
Right.
So that could be included in the communication that we make, which of course we would also provide to the township as well. So
We can clarify that in the correspondence to the petitioner.
yes, exactly.
Okay.
Through the chair, that would be most helpful and offer more explanation other than that. And I, even though I second that, am I incorrect about what we heard about the vegetation portion?
Gloria, I heard that too, that the vegetation was good,
Criteria.
was
Right.
met. That's what I thought I heard.
I quote, although Earhart Road meets some of the criteria defining a natural beauty road, the character of the natural vegetation and features within and associated with the road right-of-way is typical of many similar roads in this portion of Washtenaw County. In other words, there's nothing unique about the vegetation of that road.
Well, I'm not talking about the resolution. I'm talking about the conversation that we had prior to that, discussing what was stated in the report and back into the report on page, that's what I'm making reference to.
Yeah,
And
you are
so-
correct that as far as the percentage of vegetation along the frontage, it does meet the minimum criteria. That is
Okay.
a true statement.
Oh, okay.
And that's why the confusion, I guess.
Okay. Thank you.
So I join Gloria's concerns about making sure that the petitioners understand that the volume and the function particularly make it difficult for us to approve their requests. And I think they should be made aware that at least those two factors, for me, make it will not just make it difficult, they make it impossible for me to improve it because they don't meet the criteria. The volume exceeds the limits that are allowed, and the function doesn't qualify it as a natural beauty designation. So I'm just hoping that in our response to the petitioners that they're made aware that those were some of the considerations that we looked at in spite of the beauty that they perceive for the road, which is there.
So, and I don't know if we completed, did we complete, I'm sorry, my mind is going, did we complete the vote on the the
No.
decision? Okay,
No.
so the
So we have not
resolution,
voted on this yet.
okay, so in my mind, that resolution about the vegetation needs to either change and or include those things that are a lot more important, the function and the volume opposed to vegetation. I think that people will be more opposed to that statement of the vegetation than they would to the things that caused me to support that we can't make a beautiful road, and that would be the roadside development, the function, and the volume. The resolution about the vegetation, it's confusing given our report.
Point of clarification, are we required to make a decision today? Is there a clock ticking on
There
this
is a
decision?
clock, but
I believe
Cheryl?
there is a clock ticking and it's within a certain number of days of the public hearing. I will put Brent on the spot and ask him if it has to be today or can it wait until December 1st?
30 days after the public hearing is what's stated within the act.
So that was
the
what,
public hearing
November?
was-
Right, which would put us, that means we have to make a decision today. December 1st is beyond 30 days.
And so could we change the whereas it appears from said public hearing and review of premise that this road generally meets the criteria of natural beauty road by virtue of natural vegetation and other features? To me, that's just confusing, and or add another whereas that included it, to me, is just confusing and contradictory. I understand that it doesn't meet all of the vegetation needs, but it meets some of them, and maybe I'm just not seeing it there.
I have a
And it
question.
does say that generally meets some of the criteria, but it doesn't
Right.
meet all of them. Okay.
I
Okay.
have a question. Given that we have to make a determination today, and I understand that, do we necessarily have to do a resolution today? Because I think that resolution needs modification to include some of the things that Commissioner Yamas is making reference to. I'm okay with the decision, but the resolution as it's written, I think is confusing and misleading. Really doesn't address why it's being denied. I'd like to see that resolution modified.
Or where it says, whereas 3 of the 7 requirements are not met, such as roadside development, function, and volume. Would just add another whereas.
Yeah. Would you like to add, we can, the paragraph where it says whereas, although Earhart Road meets some of the criteria defining a natural beauty road, we could end that sentence there.
Yes.
And delete the remainder of that paragraph. And then we could either leave it at that, or we could then add another whereas and specifically state it exceeds the traffic volumes and does not meet the function as required or something to that effect.
Yes.
I agree, because they put in a lot of work and effort in this, and I think the least we can do is let them know why we are not approving it.
Okay.
Right. They need to know why we're not approving it. And I don't, the language about, it not being distinguishable, that's a subjective thing right there. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's a lot more concrete when we talk about function and volume.
Right.
You can't change that.
Yeah.
And
Would it
that's
be
really
helpful to take a brief recess and have, I guess, Cheryl work on modified language with her team, rather than trying to do this
on the
around the
fly.
table at this point?
Either that or have a special meeting tomorrow. Which delays pain. I don't mind at all having a 10-minute recess or 15 minutes or whatever Cheryl would like to have it. It's 2:06 right now. We could reconvene at 2:30.
I guess that question is for you, Cheryl.
Yeah, staff can certainly modify the resolution in 10, 15 minutes.
So should we reconvene at 2:30?
It's fine with me.
Okay, I'd like to have I will, if it's okay with my fellow commissioners, I'm going to call a recess and we will reconvene at 2:30. It's 2:30. I'd like to ask Barb if we could either do this as you were
That's not
thinking
me.
out loud a few minutes ago. We could either do this as an amendment to the original motion, or if it was acceptable to you and to Joanne both, we could withdraw your original motion
All
and
of
read
the
this
criteria.
motion in its entirety. I'd be happy to do that, whichever way you'd prefer. I think it's simpler to withdraw the earlier motion and make this one very clear.
I'm fine
That's
with that.
I
Barb,
support
is
that.
that okay with you?
Sure. I withdraw the motion.
Okay. Joanne, you seconded it. Are you okay with it being withdrawn?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I think through the chair, Doug, as
Yeah.
this motion, the whereas it does not meet all the criteria of the roadside development, because this is not all of them, does not meet some of them, all of them, does not meet all 7 criteria, all 4. How many of criteria are there? All 7?
Ooh, nice work, whoever did that.
So let me ask this. Is it necessary that all 7 of the criteria be met? Or can just some of them be met? Because that's important.
That's important. No, it must meet all of them, but when we state it like that, it makes it sound like only these 3 that we're naming are all of them, and it is not. So as people ask, then it just makes it clearer in my mind.
So
Okay,
all
are you,
criteria must be met. Is that correct?
I'm sorry.
I'm asking a question. Do all 7 criteria, are all 7 criteria required in order to satisfy the designation?
that's the way the act is written, in my personal opinion, but
Okay,
we could talk about that and convince ourselves that it has to go to court. But the act is written in such a way that these are the criteria, and it lists 7.
okay.
Thank you for that correction. I wasn't sure if it was 7 or 8, so that looks good to me. Whereas although Earhart Road meets some of the criteria defined naturally, it does not meet all 8 criteria, including, and this is good to me. Anyway,
Okay, would you like to make the motion?
I don't want to split hairs here, but where do you see 8?
It's what it says on my screen.
Commissioner
Now-
Fuller, I went through and this is Emily. I went through and I looked and we've got character of the road, length, roadside development, road bed, function of the road, roadway condition, volume, and vegetation. That is 8.
8.
That is
Okay.
on page 33 of your board packet, if you'd like to see what those 8 criteria are.
I see that, but on page 32, it names 7 of them. So we'll go with the 8 on page 33. Were you moving, Gloria, or was I?
no, you can move.
All right, I move, Mr. Chairman, do you want me to read it again?
If I would like it to be read, and I'd be happy to read it myself if you.
Yeah, that's all right. I just don't. I move whereas this board has received a petition from 25 or more property owners of the Township of Ann Arbor, Washtenaw County, Michigan, praying for the Natural Beauty Road designation of Earhart Road between Warren Road and Joy Road, a distance of approximately 1.32 miles in sections 1 and 2 of Ann Arbor Township. And whereas a public hearing was held virtually on the 27th day of October to determine the advisability of designating the above described local road as a natural beauty road pursuant to Act 451 of the Public Acts of 1994. And whereas although Earhart Road meets some of the criteria defining a natural beauty road, it does not meet all 8 criteria, including roadside development, function of the road, or traffic volume, according to the guidelines developed under Public Act 451 of the Public Acts of 1994. And whereas the Washtenaw County Road Commission does not anticipate any changes in its current maintenance practices that would adversely impact the natural character of Earhart Road, regardless of whether the road was designated as a natural beauty road. And whereas Earhart Road, as above described, is under the jurisdiction of the Washtenaw County Road Commission as recorded in Washtenaw County records, now therefore be it resolved by the Board of County Road Commissioners of the County of Washtenaw that the petition requesting the natural beauty road designation of Earhart Road as above described is hereby denied in accordance with the provisions, rules, and regulations enacted by Act 451 of the Public Acts of 1994.
So moved. Oh, second.
Been moved and seconded. Commissioner Doug
Question.
Fuller votes yes. Well, excuse me, I'm getting ahead of myself. Do any other commissioners have any further comments on this particular motion?
Yes, I do.
Oh,
Resolution.
please.
May I continue? The resolution says 8 criteria, but the guidelines say 7. I don't think there should be any discord.
On page
It seems
33,
like
there
we're
are
adding,
8. On page 33, there are 8 listed.
right, but it says 7. It says 7. Designation guidelines, it says it should meet the following 7 guidelines. So it makes it seem like we're adding a guideline.
Roadbed is excluded when you look at the list on page 32, and it is included on page 33.
Rod wants to know if it's which is the public act language, 8 or 7?
Right, it says 7. Line 2 of the last paragraphs, which says designation guidelines, it lists 7. If we add 8, it looks like we're adding 1.
Well, can we correct the notes to include 8 or whatever the act, what does the act say?
Right, what does the act say? If the act says 7, we shouldn't say 8.
Why not just replace the word 8 with the criteria?
Or you could say all.
All the criteria, meet all the criteria, yeah.
Okay,
I would be
Rod,
happy
does
to
that work
accept
for
those
you?
friendly amendments.
that's
Rod,
fine.
Rod
Yes.
Green,
Yes, sir.
does that change meet your acceptance?
Absolutely, that makes it fine for me.
Okay, thank you. Now, I heard the maker of the motion say she accepted the friendly amendment. Does the person who seconded that motion accept that amendment?
Gloria?
Yes, sorry,
That's all right.
leap at the wheel, yes.
Okay. So now, one more time, are there further conversations about this motion? I don't hear any.
No, none for me. This is Gloria.
Okay.
None.
None.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Doug Fuller votes in support of the existing motion. Commissioner Barb Fuller,
Yes.
Commissioner Rod Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Gloria Yamas,
Yes,
Commissioner Joanne McCullum.
Yes.
Oh my, we have a motion that has now been accepted.
Confetti.
Thank you. That moves us on to the next agenda item, which is the general category of we'll start with the county commissioners if we have any with us.
We have 2 county commissioners with us, or we did. Commissioner Jamnick, if you want to go ahead and make any comment?
Okay. Can you hear me?
We can, go ahead.
Absolutely.
Hello. I just want to let you all know, if you don't know, I'm not running again. So you won't have to put up with me other than 1 more month if there is a meeting in December. It has been a pleasure to work with all of you. Have a lot of history with the Washtenaw County Road Commission. I started out when the gentleman who, well, okay, I'll say gentleman who was the treasurer at Ypsilanti Township, and he decided that he was going to fire me because I wouldn't be the lady that he wanted for the evening. And he fired me. The supervisor found out about it. He gave me a job, and I said, "Oh, I don't think I can do that. See that man every day." And he said, "Well, until you find a job, you have to have a job." And the gentleman who was the Mr. Oh God, I can't think of his name right now, over the department, the people that do the work, and he called me and said, "I heard what happened to you, and I'm offering you a job at the road commission." And that was one of the nicest things that happened to me, because I was divorced and 3 children and waived child support and all that good stuff, but it all turned out well. I then went on and beat the man that fired me, the gentleman that was the treasurer. I was treasurer 22 years, and my whole career, working career, has been in governing. When term limits happened in Lansing, the only way they could get me out of Ypsilanti Township was to send me to be our state representative. I've been fortunate to serve in a lot of levels of our government. It's been just one heck of an experience. And I thank you for being patient with me here at the Road Commission and at the County Board of Commissioners as well. It's been a real treat. So I wish you all the very best. And I hope you enjoyed as much as I have. Thank you.
Ruth Ann, it's Doug, I want to thank you specifically for all the service, both to the Road Commission and to every other layer of government. You have been a credit to every organization you have ever been involved with, and I thank you.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind. Thank you.
I'd like to echo that sentiment and say congratulations to Ruth Ann Jamnick. You've been a pioneer in Washtenaw County in so many ways, opened so many doors for so many people. We thank you for your great work.
Oh, that's kind. Thank you.
And my name is Gloria, and I don't know if you remember me, but I remember
Yes,
when
I
you were,
do. Yes, I
you do, when you were a school teacher. You have done great work. Your whole life has been dedicated to community service and community, and I am so happy for you. Congratulations, and it's been a pleasure knowing you and watching you open doors and do the work that you do.
Oh, that's sweet. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Hi, Ruth Ann. This is Joanne.
Hello, Joanne.
I want to thank you all for what you have done, all your years of service and helping in the community. And your name will always, you will always be with us. And I know we're still going to hang out and everything in your red Mustang. But thank you, Ruth Ann. You know, I've done a lot of things because you did them first.
Oh, thank you.
So thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So to all of you at the Road Commission, you do great work. It's important what you do. And it's just always been a pleasure to be able to understand the departments in our county. I don't know all of them in the county, but the ones that I have served with and worked with, it's been a great experience. Thank you. Thank you all for your kindness.
And Commissioner Fuller, it looks like Commissioner Schenk had to leave the meeting before our recess. So that is our county commissioner.
Okay, thank you. Will Road Commissioner comments, we'll start with Barb Fuller.
You're muted, Barb.
I have no Road Commission related report. I would like to note that Jim has announced that all the projects for this construction season have been completed. Bravo. No report.
Rod Green,
Also have no report. Thank you.
Gloria Yamas,
I have no report. Thank you.
Joanne McCullum,
Yes, I have a report from the Washtenaw County Parks and Recreation. We met and we hadn't met before. We missed a meeting because of the new guidelines. So we had quite a bit to discuss, and I just tried to pull out some of the highlights, but everything we talked about was very significant and important. So one of the things that we talked about was the National Areas Preservation Program millage was renewed, and with a 72% of the voters supporting. So that was very good and very positive. And also our director, Mr. Vaughn, is proposing a naming policy for Washtenaw County Parks and Rec and facilities. This proposed policy allows anyone wishing to name or rename a Washtenaw County Park facility or erect a memorial honorarium in a park or within a facility. The opportunity to put the request in writing to the director with a sufficient explanation of the proposal to enable the director to make a recommendation to the commission. So that was proposed, which I think is a good idea because people can really feel ownership of parks and areas. Also, the shelter, the Mary Lou, the commission approved the proposal from the Shelter Association of Washtenaw County to use the Mary Lou Murray Recreation Center as an overflow shelter starting as early as November 11th till spring of 2021. So that's been voted and approved.
That's a cold weather shelter?
Yeah, it's for overnight.
Okay.
So they would come in around, well, weekdays from 7 a.m. Winter hours are 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. and weekends 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. That's for the winter, for the
That's
cold.
when it's open to the public.
Open to the public, right?
Right.
Those are reduced hours for the public. But the shelter is for overnight, and then they would leave in the morning.
Joanne, another question. Are we going to feed the people in the shelter? Or is that
No.
the plan? No.
No.
I believe they will be allowed to use the shower facilities though.
Okay, I thought I had to look at that again. Did you hear that, Barb? Because I thought they said,
I think that was in the letter, Joanne.
okay. All right.
Okay.
Yes, they were, the locker room will be available for restroom and shower use during the hours of 9 p.m. to 6 a.m.
Thank
So
you.
yes, they will be able to do that. That's my report.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question. Is there a monetary contribution that's going to be associated with naming opportunities for park facilities?
I didn't see that in his proposal and he didn't talk about it, but I can follow up on that for you.
I'm sure it will come out when he proposes the policy. Just wondered if that was discussed.
I was also wondering how often you were going to be able to rename something.
It must come up from time to time. So.
Thank you. I have a very short report. The Michigan County Road Commission Self-Insurance Pool had a meeting last week. Nothing tremendously significant happened at that meeting. We were updated on a number of things. Various committees were given various assignments. The pools, the pools investments are doing quite well. If you've been following the stock market, we're doing just fine, thank you. And that would conclude that report. Anyway, moving along, Cheryl?
Sure, thank you. We have a couple of different reports which were included in the board packet. We have the staff report on page 75 that's summarizing the different activities staff has performed for the last couple of weeks. We also have a communication report indicating the different types of communication that we have pushed out. And then in addition, we have the summary of the WCRC Fix-It that we had received for the month of October. That report is also shared with the county commissioners each month as well. That's part of the MOU that we had agreed to. So I'd be happy to entertain any questions on any of that material if you have any.
I have a question about page 79, the after-hour call-ins.
Okay.
I know what a fallen tree is.
Mm-hmm.
What's the debris in roadway? Is that deer? Is that mattresses? What is that?
I think it can be anything that is within the roadway,
Any of
but I will
those?
certainly defer to Jim if you'd like to expand upon that. Anything that would be a hazard of the traveled way.
Cheryl captured it perfectly.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, two other things I'll report on quickly, and then I'll turn it over to other staff. The first one is that the draft tree policy is out for public comment. We have it, it is on our website and the comment form is on there. It is also on the calendar. We do have a public information meeting scheduled for December 3rd, where we will be accepting additional public comment as well. We have pushed it out on social media. We will again, as the public meeting date gets closer, push it out again. We did also include it with the last round of the weekly roadwork schedule. It was also information on the tree policy was included with that. And we did email it to all of the township supervisors and clerks for their information, and again, to solicit additional comment on the tree policy. So do you have any questions on that?
Have we heard from anyone?
Oh, we've gotten a handful of comments, and actually the
Okay.
last I checked with Emily, they were mixed. I mean, they're both pro and I don't want to say pro and con, but there's been you know, a mix of comments.
Okay.
And then the other thing that I'll share is obviously we've had additional changes that have come down from the state, Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. The most recent one specifically has to do with remote work. And at this point in time, all workers that have the ability to work remote are required to work remote. So once again, and this primarily affects our office staff, our field staff clearly need to be on site, whatever that might mean, whether it be in vehicles or out on construction sites. They need to be out on the roadways doing their jobs. But for those of us who are in the office, if they have, that person has the ability to perform their work from home, we are asking that they do so. So that does, again, dramatically scale back the number of people that will be in the office for the face-to-face. Obviously, staff is still able to do their jobs, to do them well. I think that Dan has indicated on multiple occasions, we are very grateful to have the IT infrastructure in place that we do. And so that staff are able to make that adjustment. But so they are available by email, by Teams, by phone. So there's no lack of ways of getting hold of staff when they are working remotely, as well as the handful of us that will continue to work in the office. I don't know if there's any questions on that.
I have a question about essential workers. Our workers are considered essential workers? Designated essential workers?
We are considered essential workers. Some of the designations that were used previously in the spring, I don't want to say that they don't really apply, but there isn't anything in there that's a distinction that is going to make a difference for us as far as how we are functioning. We still, if we have the ability, especially with this remote work, it doesn't matter whether you're essential, non-essential, however that is. If you can work remote, that mandate is there that you are to work remote.
Okay, and this may be related or unrelated. Other workers in other industries, communications, DTE, were considered essential workers and granted additional pay. And that was a question I forgot. Were our workers granted that same thing, or were they even offered the same thing?
We did not provide our workers hazard pay. What we were able to do last spring was put protocols in place where we were protecting our workers, so they did not have to interface with the public and risk you know, the COVID interaction potentially, the way that some of the other industries, if you were a EMS worker, somebody who obviously had to respond regardless of the situation, we were able to put protocols in place where our employees had really no interaction with the public for quite a period of time.
So, and that was the distinction, right? Public interface, right?
Correct.
Right, okay.
I'd like to point out, as Jim noted, that we've had no COVID-19 infections or transmissions within our organization. Is that still true?
Well, actually, that's not quite true. We did have one over the summer, but it was a very isolated instance. So that's been the one that we have had, and we were thankfully with contact tracing, it had limited impact on our organization. But that contact tracing is aggressive, appropriately so. But that has had a greater impact on our staffing at this point. We have had various staff members who have been required to either self-isolate or self-quarantine based on their individual circumstances. And that is definitely having an impact on our organization. But knock on wood, so far, we have remained relatively healthy.
My compliments to everybody for compliance, even when it's inconvenient and irritating. So good work to everybody. We've just got to get through this together.
Yep, absolutely. It's not been a lot of fun. I think we're all getting a little bit grumpy at times, but we actually have a very good workforce, and I am very appreciative and only hope that we can continue in the trend that we have had right now, because I think we've been better than a lot.
And you're providing new masks, right? That meet the criteria.
That is correct statement. Any other questions for me? All right, I'd be happy to hand it over. We can start with Jim.
Staff report for the last period from pages 76 through 80. Happy to answer any questions you may have about that. And certainly pleased to report as of this morning, the operations department has completed all of its 2020 construction projects. The workforce is also well prepared, poised for winter maintenance when winter arrives. And in the interim, we're working on routine maintenance, service requests, and any emergent issues that may arise.
Thank you, Jim. Any questions for Jim? All right, Matt.
As far as construction projects, we do have one significant project still underway is Miller Road. It's the bridge portion of the project that was delayed due to a DTE gas relocation delay. So the contractor got started late, so it's no fault of the contractor. However, we do anticipate a portion of this work overlapping and carrying over into 2021. What will get done remains to be seen, depending on how favorable weather conditions hold, and we'll see what we can accomplish in partnership with our contractor. So stay tuned. That work is underway. The box culvert has been installed. I believe they're installing the wing walls and completing the backfill, and they were working on road-related work adjacent to the bridge. So that project is still underway. Other than that, certainly we're preparing for 2021. A number of items went before the board today under consent, and certainly we had a whole host of projects listed in the budget, both this year and next year's budgets. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So is the road open? Is Miller Road open?
It is not.
And it's not going to be until next spring?
It remains to be seen. Depends on how much work we can accomplish.
And DTE was the holdup?
Yes, that's correct. So any costs that we incur in addition to the contract, we would be passing those costs along. And they have been notified as such.
Grr, that's all I've got to say.
I share that,
Darn them.
Grr.
Yeah.
It was a heavy lift for DTE gas, And they definitely put forth a tremendous amount of effort and resources. It was just too late in starting that work. It's unfortunate. There were significant gas lines and investment that were relocated, but the timeline was not satisfactory, and has contributed to the delay in carrying this project over. So we'll work with them. I know it's frustrating. These are oftentimes the job stoppers, as I call them. The utility coordination is crucial, but we have coordinated this project. It's unfortunate that the timing of such that they didn't get started on the relocation until very late in the construction season, not until July.
So were we delayed the start, or they were late getting started?
They were late getting started, which delayed our start on the bridge.
Sure. Good to know.
Yep.
Any other questions for Matt? All right, Dan, you were the star of the show this morning. Anything else you want to add?
Well, I just want to say I appreciate the board's time, attention, and input on the budget and the revamped budget for 2021. I'm pretty excited about, so thank you, Emily, and we'll continue to improve. Won't stop there. It's just a good starting point. And also the technology that's available. Was kind of thinking about it. Usually there's several meetings in my office. Sometimes, for instance, I'll meet with operations. There may be half a dozen of us in my office to go over all the budget numbers. Obviously, during this environment, wasn't possible. So instead, we had Teams meetings so we could all meet safely, and I could share my screen and we can all look at the same information. Was able to work with engineering on some of our spreadsheets in real time, which is very helpful. And then lastly, Emily and I were able to work on the master budget document again in real time, make comments, address any issues. At one point, Emily and I were in the document. We noticed that Cheryl had also gotten into the document. So just a lot of wonderful tools that we're able to make use of to continue to move things forward. So ultimately, I was pretty happy with how everything came out. And that's all I have, unless there's any questions.
All right, well, that's it on behalf of staff. I will apologize for the confusion associated with that Natural Beauty Road deliberation and resolution. That is something that we do very infrequently and has been around since 1994. But I think it underscores the fact that we need to brush the dust off of that, as well as we have on some other things, to bring that current, so that when we bring one forward to you in the future, it is a little bit more professional and hopefully goes through whichever direction, approval or denial, in a smoother manner. So I apologize for that, but I think that we landed in an appropriate place.
Indeed. Thank you for your work.
I have a question of my fellow commissioners. Does anybody have any questions on the page 82 WCRC Fix It monthly report? I certainly don't hear any.
I don't. Looks fine.
Thank you.
A lot of work.
It's impressive.
Yes.
Well, that's, anyway, with that, we have exhausted the agenda, and I would be willing to entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. I will vote yes. Commissioner Barb Fuller,
Yes.
Rod Green,
Yes.
Gloria Yamas,
Yes.
Joanne McCullough.
Yes.
Good. We are adjourned, and I thank you all.